This podcast represents the opinions of the hosts of the Laugh Cry Club and guests on the show. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is for informational purposes only. And because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we share is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. Oh my gosh. I had such an emotional week. I can't wait to share.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Me too. I feel like I'm all over.
Okay, well, this is just going to be therapy. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Laugh Cry Club. I'm Joy.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Chelsea.
Hey.
Hey. It's actually.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We got to correct that error. This is the correction corner. And last week, we got the Kool-Aid Man sound wrong. But we're back. And welcome back to another week of the Laugh Cry Club. Thank you, listeners, for supporting our podcast. We are having a blast. Hopefully you can tell. Thank you for your support and 5 stars. Thank you for your reviews. Tell your friends. Share it with a friend. If you had an episode that was particularly helpful for you, pass it on and say, you know what? We've got 3 licensed therapists here to help you, and laughing and crying and sharing great stories and tips. So this week, we're going to do our laugh cry moments, and then we're going to talk a little bit about grief. That seems to be a great unifier between all of us as humans. So we'll get into that. Who's going first, Chelsea?
Well, first, I want to let you all know that the grief is connected to a listener question. So if you are a listener who submitted a question about grief, this episode is for you. I normally don't nominate the same person 2 weeks in a row, but Joy has had a really wild week, and I just feel like I'm going to burst if I don't get to deep dive into it. So,
gosh, I feel bad.
Why? I feel great, and I'm nominating it to Joy.
Oh, stealing that spotlight. It's getting real hot in here.
A little bit of hot to hot.
Yeah.
A little bit of hot to hot.
I almost said, okay, it would be not plagiarism, copyright. What is it?
Copyright infringement.
It's getting into. Did you hear it?
Yeah, everyone thinks that their audio just went out, by the way. It wasn't. Chelsea was being very creative in how, maybe that's our workround. When we
it's just little ins and outs. Okay, Joy, tell us everything.
Okay, so laugh cry of the week. It's so funny because I'm like, wow, last week was really a doozy, and this week has been really a doozy. And the funny thing is my week started out like real chill. So since we last recorded, things have been like pretty calm, but a little bit of it is kind of like a laugh, and a little bit of it is laughing because you will cry. But everything's been going really smooth with our upcoming move, and we've got our date set for our closing. We're organizing all of these movers and, all the stuff that comes with a move, changing your trash, changing your electric stuff, change all of the changes. So yeah, yesterday morning, well, here's the emotional roller coaster of life. Because yesterday morning I get a text from my uncle about because he's in team training right now, which is what they call when you're about to get a service dog. You spend 2 weeks on campus. He's there right now. He texted me with a picture of his new service dog. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I was like so excited. We were all just like joyous. We're like, it's all very private, so I can't share the name yet because we can't share until after graduation. But like within our family, we're all just like, oh my gosh, this is so great, like crying and just heartwarming. And then not 30 minutes later, I get an email. And like those emails where you like see it pop up and you're like, oh no, your heart starts racing. Well, it was an email from our closing person, the lender for the title and all the closing people for our mortgage. It says, I am so sorry. We're going to have to move your closing date to September 20th, which I can't remember if I said this last time, but we have to be out by the 19th. So we are on a very tight deadline. And that has been something I've been sweating bullets about since we decided to put our house on the market. So when I saw that pop up, I was like, no. And all of this, like, how you just get that adrenaline dump of like, oh no, you start panicking. Well, I just start panicking because all I can think of is now I have to tell the new owners of our house, like we sold, signed, sealed, delivered our house in July. The after
Wow.
closing deal was that we were allowed to stay here for 2 months. They were generous because they are just generous buyers, and they had that flexibility to let us stay here for 2 months while our new house was being built. So now I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, to ask for any of it, even if it's an hour of an extension, to me feels like a reach because they've already let us stay here for 2 months after they own this house.
Yeah.
So I'm just like freaking out, and I just put my head on my desk and I'm just doing this. I know the audience can't see it, but I just keep like rubbing my forehead. Like, you're just like, just totally overwhelmed. And my husband doesn't know yet because he's on a call, and I just start bawling because I'm like, I just want this to be over. So it's very overwhelming, like one of those days where we talked about last week where you just feel so much emotion going through your body. I knew it was going to be a day where I had to be super careful, like about making sure I was like clearing my nervous system by the end of the day. So the long and short of it was they're fine with us staying an extra day. Like, we're just going to have to haul ass. We're going to have to pack and move. I haven't moved in a while, so I don't know. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure, like, when you have movers, it doesn't take that long because, like, it's pretty fast.
You're going to be amazing.
And so we got to be out within, like, a day. And so, whereas before we had a couple days buffer to kind of, like, I don't know, leave straggling things and then come back the next day and get it. Now we don't have that luxury. So they were generous. I could tell they were like slightly annoyed, but not in a way that was like, ah, man, we got on a call and he's like, hey, we got movers coming on the 21st. So like, we can't give you any additional time after that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And I just noticed myself doing that, taking on other people's emotions where I was so, Scott was like, oh, do you want to call the new buyer and like talk through this? I was like, I can't. I will start crying because I'm so overwhelmed. So we had to get on a call together because I just take on this whole thing of like, it's our fault. And like, even though it's not our fault, it has to do with the water meter being installed. So it was just a roller coaster of a day where all I could think was like, I don't know. I just felt super overwhelmed. So that was my like kind of laugh cry. I mean, there's like a lot of moments where you just kind of have to like laugh at yourself because you're like, at the end of the day, this is all going to work out just fine. But like, it has been a wild 24 hours. And then like at the end of the night, we went out with our neighbors next door. Like the neighbors have been wanting to get together. So this was my laugh. So the day was like woo, up and down, up and down. And so at the end of the day, we're sitting outside with our neighbors who we love, and we're all having pizza and wine, and we're just like kind of talking about life. One of our neighbors has 2 daughters in their 20s, and they're kind of like dating around and like having a fun 20s life. And he described one of the guys that she was dating as a dirt sandwich because he was so boring and just like not.
Wait.
Yeah.
A dirt sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay.
He goes, he was a dirt sandwich. See, there was like no substance to him. And I started laughing so hard because I was like, I hope no one ever describes me as a dirt sandwich. That's like my goal in life. I hope no one ever sees me and was like, Joy, that's just like, yeah, that girl Joy, she is one dirt sandwich.
Oh my, okay. So my mom calls somebody, this is what my mom calls them. It must be their generation. She calls it a flat Coke. That person is a flat Coke, and I have used it for years. That dirt sandwich and flat Coke. Don't be one of those.
Don't be a flat Coke. I love a flat. I mean, I don't love flat Coke. I love that she says flat Coke because
that's what she'll describe
like,
somebody. She'll describe somebody. She's like, so-and-so's a real flat Coke. And I'm like, oh, what? Like, this was like 20 years ago she said this, and now I've ripped it off and I love it. But dirt
sandwich.
Steve will call some people milk toast, like really boring, like milk toast.
Oh my God.
I love that term. Yeah, I love that word. Milk toast or just like mealy. But dirt sandwich was
dirt sandwich.
Wow.
I laughed so hard because he was like, I didn't expect him to say that about one of the guys that she was dating, and I was like, wow, so yeah, that all happened in 24 hours. So woo.
Wow.
just going to give myself
Joy.
a little...
So
That's
Joy's
a lot.
exhausted.
I'm
Yes.
so tired, but I'm so excited to like be processing here.
Joy, I want to let you know too that maybe when your movers come, if you perhaps bought them like a 24 case of twisted tea, that might motivate them more.
You know what? I thought about that. I really
They will
thought about
enjoy
that.
it.
100% twisted tea, pizza, Kool-Aid in case some of them don't drink.
Mhm.
And you just started off energetically with a party.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Rebecca.
I mean,
look at, I don't even like high fives because I think they're kind of lame, but I'm high-fiving you. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
5 stars, 5 paws, 5 high. High
Yeah.
5.
5 high? No, that's a great idea. That is a wonderful idea. And we're just going to get it done. I made that joke about having a twisted tea party because we did our walkthrough of the house this week. So we were able to kind of like walk through everything, put stickers where they need to fix stuff, blah, blah, blah. I found a ladybug in the house, which is really cool. It's like my signal from my grandmother's. And so that was really cool. But it was funny because the guy, you'll appreciate this, Chelsea, the guy who did our walkthrough, who's like the head of all the builders and customer satisfaction, he was so helpful. But he's like, he heard about the twisted tea incident. And he was like, yeah, my daughter, he goes, he lives right in that neighborhood. He's like grew up in Morrison, so he's like a local there. And his daughter goes to high school there. And he goes, yeah, I asked my daughter to do some, recon and go around TikTok and MySpace, not MySpace. Oh my God, what did I just say?
MySpace. You just Gen X'd yourself really hard.
It's called
Facebook?
Instagram.
No,
Instagram?
Snapchat. Yeah, he goes, look around. Oh my gosh, that's wow. I'm fired.
Miles,
I'm so
you need
fired.
to help us.
God, oh no.
Okay,
Yeah,
but so did they find
Snapchat.
it?
No, but he said that there was like some Snapchat chats going around of people like hanging out in empty house. Anyway, so he was like, I'm trying to get my daughter to find out who did that. But I did see the guy who was like the day that happened when I was like trying to, make him feel comfortable. Turns out he's just always stressed because he showed up that same day just to say hi and like pop in, and he looked very stressed. So I was like, oh, that's just his baseline. So I don't need to like caretake for him. Good times. Life is really a journey. Life is a real fun journey.
Life is also a highway.
I'm going to ride it all night long. And with that,
And with that,
I'm going to pass. Okay, Joy, we're so glad that you're processing. We're so grateful. Thank you to the owners of Joy's new house that have been so patient and amazing. Thank you to Joy's husband for not letting Joy go into that character that she did last week. The real cute one that does a lot of high-pitched. It's okay. Codependency, done with that. Love
We're
it.
not doing that, girl.
Making progress through the simple act of the Laugh Cry Club. I think we're ready to nominate another human being today, and I would like that human being to be Rebecca.
Wow, thank you, everyone. Yes. Stepping up to the mic now. Here I am. Wow, it's been a week too. I'm gonna start with my laugh. Over the weekend, it was the holiday weekend, so we're like relaxing in the pool, just floating around, working on my tan. Super important.
Twisted tea party.
I've thought about it. You just wait. There's something coming for you.
Okay. Oh no, you better not be sending me twisted tea.
Don't worry, it's too expensive to send. That's really
great.
heavy.
Okay, great.
And I'm a therapist, so we don't make a lot of money.
You gotta lock it up.
Yeah. So, just chillaxing in the pool, and we're like reflecting on our Canada trip together, me and my wife. And I was like, I still can't get over how many Aussies there were in Canada. And she was like, yeah, I know. It's like, is that like the national breed there? And I'm like, what? The national breed? I'm talking about Australians. And she's like, oh my gosh, I thought you were talking about Australian shepherds because we saw so many when we were walking around. And I'm like, it was hilarious.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Because when you said that too, I automatically thought, is she calling humans breeds?
No, she was talking about Australian shepherds being the national breed of Canada. And no, but that's one thing I was really puzzled about was there were so many Australians. So it's like, I don't even have to go to Australia now because there were so many Australians in Canada, like everywhere, like in the service industry. And I learned that apparently they're all part of the Commonwealth. And so it's very easy for them to get work visas back and forth. So that's why there's so many Australians in Canada. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. So that's my laugh. That was super funny. And then, it was a cry baby, but more so like a panic, full-on panic I went through this week. So we have a dog, Fritz, that we have saved from euthanasia at the shelter, and he's been here for about 4 months. He's a hot mess. He can't really see well. He's got this chronic ear infection thing going on. So we had to go to a specialist for him, an ear specialist. And they're like, well, we're going to flesh this out, but we're going to give him we're going to sedate him a little bit. It's like 2 cocktails. So with the sedation, I don't know if any of you out there that have dogs have been through this. I've been through this with another dog. They give him a little shot. It's like, they get a little loopy, maybe fall asleep a little bit, but then they can go and reverse it too. So then they give him a shot of something else and it reverses it and then they come out of it. But he went back. He was great, super cooperative, comes out. He's still very groggy, walking around like a drunk man. And then all of a sudden, he laid down. I couldn't tell that he was breathing anymore. So I went into a full-on panic because it's trauma probably from past experiences of euthanizing animals and knowing, it's just a lot. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my God, he's not breathing. And she's like Robin's sitting there. And I'm like, Robin, he is not breathing. And she's like, well, see if you can feel anything in front of his nose. And I'm like, I can't feel anything. And I was looking and there was nothing. He wasn't moving. And so we were starting to panic. And I was like, wake up, wake up. I was trying to get him like, come on, Fritz, don't leave us now.
We're not ready for this.
No. And finally, he kind of came back to, and because we were getting ready to yell for help. And I think he just was in a really deep sleep that the breathing was so shallow, you couldn't see it. Because I checked his gums too, and they were really pale, and I started to really freak out. Oh, gosh,
yeah.
So I'm like, wake up. And I'm like, trying to get him back. But yeah, he did wake up. But that stress was whew, I can feel it now in my body just talking about it. It's like, that is so hard when stuff like that happens. So he's doing great now, and he's alive.
He's so cute. I'm so glad you rescued him.
Yeah, we are too. So, that was a little bit of an adrenaline dump as well. So I'm going to pass this over to Chelsea.
I have a lot. And so I've been trying to figure out what I want to narrow it down to. So I'm going to start with my cry because that one I think is a for sure. The laughs are lots. And so I'm trying to figure out which one. But the cry was, okay, I'm going to condense this. Okay, so we all know my husband's been going through this cancer treatment 2.5 years. January, this 2024, it came back into his liver, and we've been hoping to have surgery. And there's been continual issues with this medical device, which is basically the size of a hockey puck. It's implanted into the stomach and it shoots chemotherapy 600 times stronger to the liver. And this is why even though he's in stage 4, he's still considered curable, because if you can do surgery, you can still have a cure if it's isolated in one area. So we went from rectal to now liver, and now it's just in the liver. So this pump has had this ongoing E. coli infection. And this infection causes the body to do what it's supposed to, which is to push out the pump. So the pump is broken through the skin twice. They've had to do emergency surgery. They've had to treat him for infection, E. coli infection. We need this pump. This gives you the best prognosis of life. It basically takes cancer from being a death sentence to giving a tremendous amount of hope, because statistically, this is so much more. So I don't know, it's probably been about 6 weeks ago, Steve was picking up Miles from his friend's house, and Miles had the electric bike, and Steve went to lift it. He's not supposed to be lifting anything. And the electric bike hit his pump right where one thing of stitches were, and it caused a blood blister. The skin has since broke. So every time we go in for chemo, I'm packed because I assume that I'm going to end up he's going to be hospitalized, and they said if this happens again, we're taking out the pump. That's it. And then we have to go down this whole other, I call it new versions of hell. I was thinking about it the other day, and I think of it as a war where you have the best device or the best machinery to save your life, you find out like, oh, that gun's not going to work, or that whatever, that's not going to work. So the long of the short is we went in and I was for sure like, they're taking this out. Like last time they had already said, we're going to need to go a different route. We're going to have to remove this. So we go into the infectious disease doctor who's been wanting to take this out the whole time because obviously infection. And they have the fellows that come in and everybody's looking at it and they're like, wow, that bike fell perfectly on a stitch. And we actually think the opening that's draining is actually keeping the infection at bay because it's acting as a natural drain.
Wow.
Are you fucking kidding me? Like, what are the chances of this? And like, I knew that the damage had come from the bike, but I was like, it's infection, it's infection, it's infection. And I never wanted to talk about the bike incident because I didn't ever want to make Miles feel bad. Like, oh, like now that's the reason why the pump's coming out sooner.
Right, of course, yeah.
But I don't know if irony's the right. It's just crazy to think that the bike fell on the specific part. It broke the skin open, but the skin is not continuing to break open. It's just staying open enough to drain. And the infectious disease doctor was like, yeah, we could just go on like this for a really long time. So now we have the big guns, this liver pump. We get to keep it for however long his body can keep doing this.
Which is key, yeah.
Which is literally statistically hope in the biggest way possible. And they're also going to implant radiation beads into his liver because that was the backup plan. And we found out they can do both.
Oh, wow.
What? Yes.
Wow. That's
Holy
such good
moly.
news.
I know. It makes me tear up. So I have not had hope. Okay, I always have hope. I have felt this dark cloud since January because every single thing has gone sideways.
Yeah.
And I have felt like we're just buying time. We're buying time. They've said we're buying time. Like it has been viciously brutal. And so to get this news was just like, I was stunned. I like sat there and I'm like, wait, like I packed a bag and they're like, yeah, you're not staying. Like he can go get chemo right now through the pump.
That's
wild.
amazing.
That's a miracle. That's like those
it
stories
is.
you hear of like someone being in a car accident and walking away with no scratch. Like the fact that it just like happened to hit on a random area that ended up working in his favor is just, I don't know. That's like godlike type of things that you just can't explain.
Yeah, there's no words for that. And then I'm going to make my laugh short because my story was so long. So my daughter is the cutest thing and just like the cutest thing. She's this little 5'8", round, youthful face. When she sleeps, she kind of looks like a doll that's like really spread out, messy. Her hair gets kind of wild, but her little angelic face.
She does have, yeah.
Yeah, she's got that little baby, like cute little doll face. And so she loves sleep so much like I do. Like sleeping is her favorite. Her bed is her favorite. And so I like believe that the way you go to bed and the way you wake up really matters. And she has this really annoying alarm that like screams at her on her phone. So I go in her room and her alarm's going off and in all caps it says, wakey, wakey.
Eggs and bakey.
And I look at her and I like touch her little face, her sweet little face. And she's like, you know, cute and rolls over. And she's like, I have one more minute. Don't take away my one more minute. I'm like, one more minute? She's like, I snoozed my alarm. I'm like, did you type wakey, wakey? And she's like, yes. And then she just turns her head down and she's a teenager. So she just goes back to sleep. And I'm like, I want to be her.
Yeah.
She's a screaming alarm clock doesn't really wake you up, but you snooze it, then you go back to sleep. And then she's just like, she put wakey, wakey. I can't. I don't know why I think that's so funny. Maybe it's not funny.
So
I just think that it's really hilarious, this little 14-year-old. So that's my laugh.
That's great.
Oh, I'm just taking a beat.
Yeah.
Life is life.
That's life, baby.
That's life, baby.
It's all of it.
It is, isn't it? It's hard. It's hard stuff.
It's hard being
just
human.
Yeah, the highs are so high and the lows can be so low.
Yeah.
And we're living in these just like jacked up states of arousal. And I think this is a good time with our little beat that we're taking to reflect on this listener question. It's a really good one that I think ties into those low lows. The question is how do you grieve a loss and also be grateful for the experiences or opportunities? Oh, I love this question, and I feel like this is a mirror of my life. So let's open up the floor. No nominees. Open mic.
This makes me think a lot about what we've talked about in previous episodes where a both and appears, where you can be in a situation and also have maybe a completely opposite feeling about it. Grief is a really complicated feeling. And then when we go to the place of happiness, we may feel guilty around it. So what we like to call that in therapy too is like the dialectic, where two things can be true at the same time. Multiple feelings can be true at the same time. I do want to point this out really quick though, because we often hear in the zeitgeist and people that aren't in mental health talk about the stages of grief. I don't know if you've heard this, Rebecca, Chelsea, I'm sure you have, but I just want to bring this up because I often want to just clarify that the founder of the stages of grief, or one of the main models, was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. So there's a model they call it the Kubler-Ross model of grief. And I want to point out that Elizabeth developed it to describe people with terminal illnesses facing their own death. And so that to me can be sometimes I don't want to say misused because there's really no rules around like processing grief, but sometimes people kind of use that as a baseline. And I want to make sure that we're using these tools with that knowledge. I'm not going to say the word correct because there's no correct way, but just to use that knowledge if you're kind of tossing that out, with friends or whatever, because that to me is like, we want to just kind of make sure that we're understanding that model, because bargaining may not be a part of someone's, so you don't have to like use that per se. And I think we want to expand what grief looks like. And especially as we have this discussion, I'd love to talk more too around understanding how to support people through grief, because I think that's a huge uncomfortable thing for some people of like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't want to do the wrong thing. So those are my initial thoughts.
Joy, I want to say great call out on the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief, that it was for people that were basically, terminal and going through their own, facing the fact that they were going to be leaving this earth. So since we mentioned Kubler-Ross, I think we should also mention what the 5 stages of grief are, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, which we talked about last week, which I want to say acknowledgement. You'll hear this in any therapy session. People talk about Kubler-Ross if you're going to talk about grief and loss. It doesn't mean, like Joy was saying, that maybe you're going to go through the bargaining phase or something like that. And it's not a linear path, right? That you do this, and this. It's like a fluid cycle, and you may be somewhere in that and having some of those emotions, but then you may not have them, and they may not be in an order, or you may have 3 of the 5 or whatnot. And there's been, numerous other grief scales presented since this originally came out, but she is the original, the OG when it comes to grief and loss, for sure.
I do want to add that David Kessler worked side by side with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and his son, I believe, he had a son that died tragically at a very young age, and he created the 6th stage of grief, which is to find meaning, I believe is what that is. And so I want to tie that in because I think that gratitude with this question of how do you grieve loss and also be grateful, that gratitude piece, I think, is really key to the 6th stage of finding meaning. And when we find meaning, we can find gratitude. And so I'm going to pull the lens all the way back. And I want to give a few examples of grief and loss. We see this in divorce, even when people want to leave. They've tried all the things, it didn't work, and they have the grief and loss of what could have been, the grief of loss of what was. We see this, Rebecca, with death. Rebecca talked about her loss of her dog. Death is very, very painful and I believe, a permanent grief and loss that I don't believe that time heals all wounds. I think the wound gets smaller because more of life happens and takes up a little more space. We have anticipatory grief. That's often what I'm in with going through cancer, is what's going to happen, and grieving in the loss of my old life, grieving the loss before I knew better, feeling like everything's a reflection of what once was. And then we have the grief and loss, I think, that we don't talk about, like the losing of oneself. And I see this in motherhood a lot. So people have kids and they become so great at keeping their kids alive and thriving, and they really lose their identity. They lose their sense of self. And there's a lot of grief and loss in that too. So I want to really honor this vast array of experiences that can bring up grief, that can bring up loss. And then how do we pivot into gratitude? And I want to connect that to meaning.
Something that comes to mind too around grief is the cultural aspect for everyone, and how you're raised, and maybe a different culture of how you view the loss of someone, and how your culture chooses to memorialize or process the death and honor the person who passed away. That's a really big piece of, I think, acknowledging that for yourself and not comparing. We tend to go into this comparison trap of, what you should be doing or how this person dealt with it, or, questioning whether or not you're doing the right thing. I hear that a lot, which is like, I feel like I'm doing this wrong. You're never doing it wrong, because it's just, we don't have a roadmap when things like this happen. But something that I often think about with grief is also just so many layers, especially I'm trained in EMDR. It's all relative depending on who we're talking about with the person, but complicated grief, meaning maybe it was something that was, preventable, or, an accident where you feel like you could have saved this person, or someone just dying naturally of old age. Like that tends to feel like also layered into how you're processing that grief, as well as maybe it was something where you have to go through a trial. Like, God forbid, there was someone who was murdered, or there was some type of, really complicated situation where you have to kind of prolong it. So there's so many situations that can kind of make a really hard time in your life even more difficult. But I think to your point, Chelsea, of like how we then look at something in a grieving situation, and then can also, because it's that whole reason why we started the podcast, the laugh then the cry, the pivot of like the really extreme emotions. It's that whole like right turn of like, oh, you feel like you have emotional whiplash. So how do you exist with both? Because it's almost like when we go from one extreme to the next, we feel like we can't hold both spaces. So turning it back to you, as far as like how you tie that into the gratitude, what would you suggest?
I can bring up 2 times in my life where I went into what I call radical self-care, which included living a life of gratitude. So I had one time where my marriage had completely exploded, and the grief was knowing it was never going to be the same. It was lost. It was gone. I was never going to be the same because of this experience. And so I had not only the loss of myself, I had the loss of the hopes and dreams, I had the loss of what was, I had a loss of the purity, all of those things gone. Every day I would go outside and just get really big. I would get really little. And I would look at really big. And so it would be looking up at the sky and looking at the sun and looking at, like, I call it the micro moments, these teeny tiny things, almost like you have fresh eyes, because the pain is so consuming that when you look up to the sky, you see the bigness, you see the vastness, you see the squirrels in the tree. Like, the looking up, I would say, saved my life. And the gratitude that I felt really was in, I guess for me, knowing the opportunity was that I got to choose. Like, this happened, and now I get to choose how I want to show up. And then the second time, I would say the biggest time that this happened is the cancer diagnosis. And I remember being with my kids, having to tell my kids and saying to them, we are human beings and we're meant to do really hard things. And you are going to see the most love you've ever seen in your whole entire life. You are going to see the most people show up that you've ever seen in your whole entire life. Our family will be protected. Our family will be held. And that's what we have to lean into, because this is going to be one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. And I'm so sorry you have to do this at such a young age. And I remember my daughter wailing, screaming, screaming, my daddy's my best friend, and this should have happened to Putin. That's what she said. It was during the beginning of the Ukraine war. And God, she was little. So a couple years ago, so 11 or 12. But the gratitude of the leaning, the love, being willing to accept it, being willing to be vulnerable, being willing to share is where that gratitude came in, because people came out of the woodworks. There's still people to this day, and it's been 2.5 years, who message me regularly and ask. And so holding on to the gratitude of love and getting to see love and getting to be in the purest, rawest form of love, that's helped with this diagnosis. And the other time, it was really getting really big with seeing all the things. Like, I'm just this one little person in this teeny tiny world, and I get to choose how I want to show up. I get to choose what I pay attention to. And the radical self-care is pivoting out of all the things that don't serve you. I guess that's how I would say you stay in gratitude. Anything that doesn't serve you is a hard no. I think I'm rambling.
No, it's kind of like it's kind of like the thing of you're being very selective with your energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hardcore pivots.
I was thinking, Chelsea, too, when you said you went outside and you kind of looked up big picture, right? The sky, or then you started noticing the squirrels, is that grief has a tendency to make us feel small. And then that we get really introspective a lot of times. And I think we recognize the impermanence of things in life, actually, that it does feel really small. So you start getting on a granular level and I think people just start recognizing things. I think there are times when people are so distraught because it's so tragic, or your body's just feeling it, that you can't at that moment look at those small things. But I think when the looking of the small things, like you did going outside, is actually part of helping yourself move through it. Because there's always those times when you want to stay in bed and people are crying and they're upset and they're like, I can't function in life, because that does happen to people. But at some point, we do know we all have to move forward. And so actually recognizing those small things and recognizing we really are like a drop of sand in this bucket, I think that kind of helps us move through it too.
That's such a great point, because I think about the times when I've had great loss, and I like to go outside to be reminded of how small we are, and I look up at the tree. I do the same thing, Chelsea, where it's like you just kind of have to be reminded that there's a spirit. Because for me, I have to think about spirituality of like, I personally can't wrap my head around where the person goes. And I have to look at the stars to be like, there's a huge world out there that we just can't understand. So that reminds me of, I'm never going to understand it, but I also don't understand how we're living and breathing on this earth. I don't understand how the stars are in the sky. So like, that's kind of where it goes for me too. It's just like, I need to just have some type of like connection to the universe in that way, because I still think about when my grandma passed away, and I think one of the hardest moments was driving away from the cemetery, because I hated knowing that like she was there, like her body was there, and I was like, but like what now? Like, she's there, like I don't want to leave her there, and that was like devastating. But you have to be like, all right, she's not in there. Like, she's everywhere. And I think that's the place that you're talking about.
I think, too, when you start to think about she's everywhere, that's where the gratitude comes in. You're reminded of how grateful you are for all the experiences, right? I mean,
like, it's connected to everything.
It's
like,
all connected.
Yeah.
I think of it as like grief and loss is like yin and yang, like, you can't have one without the other. Because if you're grieving something or someone, then when that person was alive, or when you maybe had that job or that relationship, you were grateful for it. So you have to be grieving, you have to be grateful. To be grateful, you know that you will have grief as well. I mean, because there are things in life that happen to us, and it's like, oh, I didn't really care about, that person wasn't really significant to me. So yeah, it's maybe like I can recognize that's really sad for their family or whoever, but it's not affecting you because you didn't have that close relationship and you didn't have gratitude maybe for that person while they were living, or, the job or whatnot, or the relationship.
It's kind of like that cliche saying of like, if you like love big, you're going to grieve big. Like, we're afraid, back to Brene Brown, one where she's told about, in her research, she told a story about a man who like really withheld his true passionate love for his wife because he was so afraid when he lost her, he would just be devastated. So he didn't live big, live fully with her because he was like, well, if I just can kind of like keep a cap on it, when I lose her, I'm not going to completely crumble. And he's like, turns out you can't outsmart vulnerability. You can't outsmart that. You're gonna hurt no matter what. So you might as well just like let the emotions go. And that's kind of the rub of being human, is like you gotta live so big and love so big and say all the things. And also we're gonna hurt so much when that's gone. And there's just no way around that.
I look at being human as painful.
Isn't that what you quoted last week, Chelsea, of like, you know, the pain?
I think so.
Yeah. Being a human is painful. It's
painful. And we're all trained to go around not feeling pain. That's why we do all these behaviors.
Totally.
All day long, we're just trying to avoid pain.
Yeah.
But, I look at it like as soon as we're born, we're actually dying. It's just part of the process.
Yeah.
And being human is super painful.
Rebecca, I want to add to that. When you are close to death or when you are in loss, I do think it's the biggest opportunity to live big because you see the fragility of life. You see that life now has a timeline. We all know there's a timeline. We just don't normally. Well, some people know when. Sometimes it's a freak accident. Sometimes there's other things that happen. But for me, this was the reflection of how many things didn't fucking matter. Like literally, and I have said this before, I've said cancer it happened for us. As fucked as it is, excuse my language for anybody I offended, as fucked up as it happened for us. You know, my family was apart at the time and we came back together as a family. My kids have got to witness the most love, the most compassion. They've got to see what it's like to have real healing happen. We got to remove layers and layers of defenses and wounds. Like my husband and I have been through, it feels like the most massive amounts of couples psychotherapy because there's nothing left if you choose to lean into love. And grief is the mirror of the most tremendous, most profound love. And I love what somebody shared earlier about, or I think it was Joy wanting to close off their heart. Like that in and of itself, all it does is hurt you more. And so the gratitude comes from the vulnerability of being able to like go hard or go home and leaning into the discomfort. Rebecca, you said like being in bed. I remember after this being in bed and my girlfriend coming over and being like, get your ass out of bed. You're going out for drinks. And me being like, there's no way. That's the most counterintuitive thing I could possibly do. And her being like, I'll take you out of the house like this. You need to like, and then having kids has forced me to live and the wakey moments and the cuteness of little round faces and the volleyball games and the hot goss and the shortcuts and words. Like you either die in the grief and shut off love, or you lean into love. And that's how I would describe gratitude is all things love, all things bigger.
As you were talking about that, I could kind of visualize almost like this lens, like just such a clear focus of what we need to do as humans to really just put our energy into the things that matter. Like you said, I experienced that in a different way. But when I lost my grandmother, I lost actually 2 grandmothers in a year. Thankfully, they were like the same age. They lived a great full life, but it was really hard. And I just remember so vividly after that year being like, I am never, because I was like so kind of neurotic about like doing well at work and like just focused on work and, being a good employee and like worried about my boss, what they thought of me. And I just vowed that I was like, I just can't, like it's a job and I just have to focus on my family and focus on what's important in my job. I'll do a good job, but I'm not going to spend wasting time mulling over that stuff. That's just, again, back to your point, like focusing your energy and where you want to put your energy. And I think that's what grief, I love what you said. It's just like it kind of forces you to live really big. And I don't think we can get there until you really experience it. You can talk about it, you can kind of envision it. But when you are like brought to your knees with grief is when you fully are like, I am so clear on what really matters.
Joy, I want to just give a therapy insight that I think might be helpful to listeners is what you're describing is actually doing the work of being in the grief. When we're distracted with, I'm in grief, but now I'm projecting this onto my boss. I'm in grief and now I'm negative Nancy. I'm grief. Now I'm like I'm labeling people negative Nancy. Now I'm complaining Chelsea. Now I'm going into all of these other things. You're actually avoiding the grief. You're avoiding the grief. And so when you cut off the fat and you say these things do not matter, you are now in the both and. You're in the grief because it feels like I described, the highs are so high and the lows are so low, but we're staying to what is true rather than getting pulled in a million different directions. And then we see that grief come out way later. We see people getting stuck in anger. We see people getting stuck in all these and anxiety, fear, disconnect, all these other things because they're avoiding going to the pain because the pain means feeling the love too.
Well, I'll end on this part because I know we're wrapping up on time, but when you were saying that, I think about generations, right? And in my family, and we can talk about this maybe in another episode too, there's a lot of stuff that we've all experienced in our own lives with family trauma. But my mom's side of the family experienced some really great loss. She lost her father at a very young age, and she's the eldest of 6 kids. And so all the younger brothers dealt with this loss of their dad at a very young age. And it was a really tragic passing. And I see generationally, therapy wasn't really a thing when they were growing up. Very strict Catholic family. You just move on. You get up, you move on, you kind of keep going. And for better or for worse, that just was how it was back in the day. Truly, therapy just wasn't a thing. I see now, how many years? I just can't even think. I think it happened in 73 or 74. All those years of stuffing it, how it has affected my uncles. And it's taken a lot of time, but it is not pretty. Of not dealing with it. And growing up, I didn't think about that. You don't think about it because you don't really process things. But now looking back, I'm like, it is so important. You can't outrun it. You can never, you have to face it. And almost like at this point, it feels like if they were to face it in a way, I worry that they would feel like they were going to just topple over and die because of pain. It's been stuffed for so long. So it's a really important piece to think about. It's so hard.
You have to experience the pain in order to face it, move through it. We want to avoid it. So that's the stuffing because it's so painful. But if you actually allow yourself to grieve and go through it, don't put a timeline on it, go talk to somebody, reach out to friends and families, process this, you will feel better. Your body will feel better. That takes us back to the Body Keeps Score book that when we stuff these things, it's for a lifetime. It's a lifetime of healing. And then we get these generational traumas too, where when somebody doesn't process it, then that's another whole podcast about generational trauma. But we have to feel the pain. It's so painful. Nobody wants to go through it, but you have to do it.
And we all are in the same boat. So you're not alone. You're not alone. No. It's the universal human experience. I just saw a patient this morning and I was talking about that. I was like, unfortunately, this comes... You get your card when you sign up for being a human. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It just is how it is.
Being human is painful, everyone.
Yeah, we should put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, and being human is living in the both and. You have micro moments that feel like bliss, and the next second you can be crying and it can be so painful, and both are right.
Mm-hmm.
Both are right. So don't judge it. Don't criticize it. Don't feel like you have to shove a part of yourself away. Both are right and both will save you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Both will save you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here for this conversation today. This has been really great. And Chelsea and Joy, I really loved what you were saying. Really resonated with me.
Yeah, same here. This is always, I feel selfish sometimes doing this podcast because I get so much out of it in so many ways. But
I get more out of this than my own therapy session.
How's that going, by the way?
I did say
and
that.
Next week we'll talk about Rebecca's therapy.
Do you have an update for us next week, you think?
I canceled the appointment.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
I did on my end. I'm waiting for a hey, I received your message. I'm hoping so because I don't want to get charged $200 for it. Because I canceled yesterday. I decided just like this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
Rebecca just saved herself from a whole lot of grief and having to pivot into finding meaning and wasting her money with her non-refundable therapist. Oh my
An
God.
extra
Okay.
$10 for meditation.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Ugh. Way to
Good for
have
you.
self-preservation.
Yeah,
I'm
good
so
for you.
happy.
Yeah,
I'm really
thank you.
happy. I was having such a visceral reaction with my 2 thumbs down.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I'm
get
giving hugs. I'm giving hugs to you all with 2 thumbs down
Yes.
for this other thing and
Yeah.
love and gratitude.
Thank
and for
you
you,
so
all
much.
you listeners, lean in. It's hard, but
Ugh.
lean in.
We are all doing it. Everybody,
Yes.
we are all doing it. So
We're all in the club.
Just know that you're in the club. You are here. We are wrapping our arms around you. And
Yes.
you can find us on social media if you want to just tap into the social media club as well, at Laugh Cry Club on all of the social media platforms. We're getting real good at the reels. We got a great video from our podcast last week, so you can check us out there and see what our faces look like. We're so pretty.
Very
And send us
gorgeous.
an email if you have a question for us that you would like to have us address on the show, laughcryclub@gmail.com. That wraps up another great week of this wonderful show that I'm just loving so much. And have a great week, everybody.
See ya.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That's life, baby.